Welcome everybody to the Bomber Strap YouTube review. In this review, we're going to talk about what I did to wire the ICOM 2730 into my vehicle. I wanted to have a mobile radio in my vehicle, and you're kind of forced with kind of the split dichotomy. You can either go down the route of doing the least invasive wiring for your vehicle, which would be a handheld or a low wattage mobile radio, and there's some great options there. Midland, I think, has a few for GRMS and CB, but hey, look, if you want and you're, got your technician license or general license and you want to operate a mobile radio, there's not too many good videos, I would say, on YouTube in terms of how to do the wiring. And so I'm not an electrician, I'm not somebody who's an expert, but now that we have AI, we can do our own research. And in my case, I'll show you what I did and what I was advised to do through the use of Claude AI. So we're kind of in idle hands, right? We're just letting AI run our lives and make decisions. But the outcome on this project was actually good. And using Claude AI actually reduced some of my expenses because I was able to figure out what I needed in terms of the exact equipment, wiring, the size, AUG wire, and all that stuff that would be normally very confusing and difficult. It was easily accomplished. So let's take a look at what I did and a couple of videos that I shot a couple weeks ago. And yeah, I will be mounting this using Trackform's equipment. So I have the Picatinny rail. I'll be using this adapter, and then I will be doing a makeshift mount. I'll make my own mount system that'll go from here to the mounting system here, and that will hold it up so I can operate the radio. I got a couple different mounting options. I did use Velcro on the base plate to kind of figure out what position would be best. I think that's really advisable if you're not sure where it should fit in your vehicle, because when you're riding in your vehicle, your leg space is kind of key. So knowing where you want it is fundamental to making sure you have operation of the radio, but you're also driving comfortably. So that's what I did. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you. So if we start from the radio here, that coaxial cable comes through here, through a grommet about shoulder level, and then I fed it down with some wiring. So I taped the wire to the coaxial, ran it underneath here, continued through, and you can see it goes under the seat and connects to the body of the radio. All right, and then that was important just for the antenna. And then in terms of using the relay, the relay with the ACC is connected to the fuse box on the passenger side underneath there. So you have to go underneath there, connect a pigtail wire to the ACC. It's 5 amp fuse wiring. And then I ran that wiring through here, through the dash, and that connected through and goes under the grommet underneath here. And then that connects under the hood to the relay. There, of course, is the power wire, the red wire that comes out of the grommet here and connects to the main radio body. The radio body, I think it's a smart move, is attached to the frame, but it's attached through Velcro, so I can move this around as needed. Okay, so under the hood, the way things work is that you have the relay here, and that relay is attached to the wiring that was connected to the ACC fuse. And then you have another portable 15 amp fuse that is attached to the power from the battery. And then you can see the wiring runs all the way across, and then that feeds into the grommet. That is a little crowded, but it's right there. You can kind of see what's happening here. So all the wiring gets fed through there. So it does run across, but it's well connected, and it's protected with an outer liner material. So I split that off of an additional harness system and taped it, and so that's what's protecting the wire. but that's how it works. So I'm just going back to the relay here. What happens, the way the relay works is that when I turn on the ignition, that flips the coil and powers it up so that it accesses the main power from the battery. So it basically acts as a switch. So this doesn't basically kick on and draw power until the vehicle's turned on. And that's what powers the radio. So it prevents parasitic drain. But that's the long and short of it, and hope that's nice and clear for everybody. And let's go ahead and take a look at the radio. Just to explain how this works, the radio will not turn on until I turn the ignition on. And then that powers my radio. And you can see here that I can turn this on and off as needed, but it's gonna prevent any parasitic drain. And the way it's connected is with the track form Picatinny rail. Super sick, highly recommended. And then I made a custom backing for the mount. Okay, so the last little thing I wanted to show is, you have this quick connect that goes to the radio that you mount on here with the 2 screws. So that's a cool option, but I got the Picatinny rail from Trackform, and then I'm customizing my own mounting plate that'll connect to the Picatinny rail here, and then the 3.5-inch connector, ball connector. You could see that even though this is for 22 millimeter balls, this is a 1-inch, so it's 25.4 or 25.4. Anyway, it's slightly bigger, but Trackform has enough, well, they have enough play in the system to allow you to adapt it to a slightly larger ball. And that's what's gonna basically connect this to that, and then that'll go on the dash. All right, I hope you found this video helpful. Again, this was on the ICOM 2730. This was the mobile rig that I chose for my vehicle because I wanted to have radio communication for off-roading. Inside the vehicle, I thought that it's a better foundation for the growth of my radio experience in terms of having capabilities that are far-reaching, literally far-reaching, as opposed to a handheld. And the forced decision-making that you have if you are off-roading and you want radio communication is that you're either going to go down the route of creating a mobile rig option for your truck, or you're going to keep a handheld in your vehicle. And both have strong arguments, but there's also downsides to each. Okay, the downside to having a handheld is you have limited range unless you can connect to a repeater. That being said, if you need to get to high ground and your vehicle stalled out, you could take your radio with you to higher ground and get better communication. In a mobile rig, you can't do that. In a mobile rig, however, if you have power, your range is a lot longer. That's number one. And then number two, it just seems like you have better options, better functionality. The downside, of course, is that you have to go through everything that I went through to install it, meaning that you have to find a way to link up power. That was a big barrier to entry for me to say, hey, let's go for it. I was afraid to mess with the wiring of my vehicle. With AI, you're able to get a lot more false confidence in terms of your capabilities. I went in after it thinking everything was going to be told to me. What I found out was there was a couple of issues. So if there's an order of operation in your decision-making to decide whether or not you're going to go with a mobile rig, think about this. Number one, can you get an antenna on the outside of your vehicle, and can you get the cable to the inside? If you can, great. That's check number one. Number two, you want to get power to it, right? So what is the safest way to do that? I did some research and it looked like the relay option was good. In order for a relay to work, it's probably best to find a fuse like I did, the ACC fuse. In my Tundra, I hooked up to that, and then that way when I powered on, that low voltage would then run all the way to the relay, kick on the coil, send a larger power voltage to turn on my radio. That was the trick for me. I thought that was cool because it avoided parasitic drain. Something I was worried about, and a big hesitation for me to say, hey, if I hook this up to my directly to my car battery, if I turn the radio off, is there an option that you could have some parasitic drain? The answer was yes. And so I was like, all right, I'm going the relay option. So that for me was, that kind of sealed the deal. Okay, so that being said, those were the big two. Okay, can you get the antenna outside? Can you get good power? And once I accomplished those things, I was good to go. The other big thing that I ran across is my technical capability. I have no electrical experience whatsoever. And so I ran into two issues. The first issue being that I didn't know where my fuses were. According to AI, it was going to be on the driver's side, but in reality, it was on the passenger side. The other thing was the pigtail connector for the micro fuse that I used. It was going in, it looked good. I assumed there would be power. Go to turn on the radio, no power. Okay, so when I went through the deductive reasoning of where the issue could be, I grabbed a voltmeter, found out that the ACC port was hot, it was good, but the connector was bad. Either the fuse was bad or the actual power cable itself, for whatever reason, was bad. So I swapped it out, put in new fuses, it was hot, good. Go to the actual radio, go to test if there's power, there's no power. So I actually tried to figure out where my problem could be, and I asked around and I got some helpful information. Somebody said that the majority of the time they've worked on radios, typically it had to do with a bad ground. So I checked my grounds, turned out that the ground I was using for the radio had too much paint engaged on the metal of the wiring connector. And so I scratched away the paint, got metal to metal ground, that made the connection, and then the radio was live. So grab a voltmeter for sure. Make sure you have solid grounds. That's it. That's what I would do. But again, I'm biased with my radio communication. I thought, the mobile rig was the way to go versus the handheld. But who's to say you can't have both, right? And so if you have questions about what are good options for off-roading radio communication, please let me know in the comments. Again, you don't have to go as high as a ham radio technician license. You can go GMRS, which you can pay for and have outstanding range, great opportunities, or you can go CB. Tons of good options out there. Let me know in the comments. Take care.